This is Bob from Trade Genius. It's Sunday, the 22nd of May, and I want to start off talking a little bit about the weather again. It's really starting to get really interesting, and there's a really cool chart that allows us to dynamically watch how well the crops are doing across the world. And what I want to point out to everybody here is that the distress is starting to take hold as this La Nina begins to accelerate in its intensity. And if you look at South America, I talked about this last week, is that they're a mess. Their crops are starting to suffer. There's some areas that are getting really poor because of all the rainfall they're getting. That's one of the things about La Nina that people don't realize is that it's not so much the snow and the freezing weather that happens, but it's mostly you get a lot more moisture and it gets cool and it affects the ability for the crops to grow because it's cloudier and it's cooler, and then you can't get the crops in the ground because the ground is too wet. Well, that's what's happening in South America. And if you can see here, their corn crop and their soybean crop are really starting to suffer, and it's going to start raising prices. And their big export market is China. And let's go over to visit China for a second. This area here is their wheat growing belt. They're getting a poor harvest already, and if you look down to Southeast Asia, they're having the same problem with their rice crop. And then in this area here, you won't see it yet, but you will see it. They're getting heavy rains in this area. Now you say, hey, heavy rains in rice is great, except that it's starting to affect their ability to plant the rice, and you're starting to see it right here. Now, in 2007, 2008, the rice crop uh, also had a failure because of La Nina, and prices went through the roof. So I would start worrying a little bit, and if you're if you're into planning and prepping, is that you probably might want to get some rice while it's still pretty cheap, and because China's going to be a big buyer pretty soon. And moving on, just to show you a little bit more to add to that is that our government now has finally recognized that we're not warming. And in fact, this is the first time I was shocked when I saw this. They're actually calling for lower temperatures for the back half of the year. It is so obvious now they can't continue their fraud and manipulation. And this La Nina is intensifying, and if it pushes into next year, which I suspect it will because the oceans are so cold right now, is that next year we're going to have some pretty strong food prices this year, but next year I think they're going to shock people, and I need you to start thinking about preparing yourself for that. And I'm going to show you one way to do it in a minute. Here's China. It's the 20th of May. They got 8 inches of snow above Beijing, and this is in their northern wheat growing region. And you're going to see that it's going to affect the wheat crop going in this year, and it's going to affect their wheat production going into the fall. But they're not immune. Here's California, where I live. I live down here where it's sunnier and warmer. But look at it. This is snow. May 20th, snow in California. And last week we had snow in Maine, we had snow in Cleveland, and we had frost in Wisconsin. This isn't normal, folks. This whole deception around global warming is really sad. They tell people like me that I'm a Cassandra and a kook because I see this coming, but it's just right in front of my eyes. And I think you need to be aware and be prepared. And finally, this is how you prepare. Look at this is a beautiful chart pattern. This is what's known as a cup. This is a handle. Right here, the momentum is setting up. The intensity is recharging. And all we're waiting for now is for it to turn back up. You get to 34. If you're not already in it, buy it. And if for some reason it pushes down, I'd be a buyer anything in the 32 area. And I suspect that we're going to see a minimum move here of from when we get to 34, we're probably going to get to to 3650 area here in a short order. So you're going to make 10% on this in probably the next 3 to 4 months minimum. Anyway, that's my La Nina watch for the week, and I'll report again as I see new developments. Thank you. Have a great morning. Bye bye.